as the Premier League just goes on, it's just like it's gathering less and less importance as these games go on, aren't they?
Exactly. And that's the reality.
And I think like, as fans were getting angry prior to maybe the Bodo first leg or the Frankfurt second leg, I just feel like after the West Ham game, there were hardly any angry fans. Yeah. It was just like, it is what it is now. And I think this game will be the exact, probably even less so.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to be honest, I think both Tottenham and Palace are probably feeling this game is just something we have to get through.
I reckon it could be like 0-0 this game.
Yeah, it could easily just be like both teams just want to play this out because both teams, the number one thing for both teams is no injuries.
Yeah.
More important than the result.
So look, yeah, like you said, so what is there to even like preview about this game, to be honest? Because it's like two teams with absolutely nothing to play for. Spurs got a Europa League final to get ready for. They've got an FA Cup final to get ready for.
When's the FA Cup? Is it after? Is the weekend after the Europa League? Is that when it is?
So. Yeah, I think so.
So, yeah, they do not want to be getting any injuries in this.
This is their last game before the FA Cup final.
Yeah. Oh, so for sure, this is just a game that both sets of fans like. Do you want to just agree on a share a point? Agree, like, shake hands?
One's going to be going into the 50-50s. No one's going to be being overly aggressive in this game. No one's going to be overly exerting themselves. I would say probably if both teams are going to make a lot of changes, then maybe the new players coming in trying to fight their way into that FA Cup final team or Europa League final team. So maybe you'll see an element of that in there. But I still feel like you're going to see most players pulling out of 50-50s and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm just seeing if Glasner has said anything about him resting players or anything like that for this game. All I can see is he said Wharton has been ruled out, but I'll see if I can get any quotes from him if he said anything about changes. But this is a massive, it's a massive game for them. This is probably as big for Palace as the Europa League final is for us.
Yeah,
and I think
maybe even bigger. Like, when's the last time they were in an FA Cup final?
Well, it wasn't that long ago actually, because Pardew, remember? Pardew did that silly dance. The silly dance. So that was in 2016. They lost to Van Gaal, I think. Van Gaal's Man United. So I think, Palace are not gonna. I agree. It's going to be a game where just both teams don't want any injuries. They're going to be very cautious, I think. Yeah, I agree. Maybe some of them, if Palace are going to rest players, then I think a lot of those players probably want to win their place in the final team and will give it their all. Maybe same with some of the Spurs players. But if you're looking at the terms of the decisions that Ange will probably have to make ahead of the final, it's really only the winger positions probably that's up for grabs. You'd have to say. I think all the other positions are really on lock at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Is there a chance that if Sarr has some top performances in the next couple of games that he can take Basuma's spot?
Yeah, I guess there's a case for it. Maybe Sarr could win a spot if he really kills it over these next two games. But even then, in a final, do you trust that the more experienced head of Basuma, or do you go with Sarr? It's a difficult one, but because Basuma's played well. But yeah, for sure, I guess that's another one that's probably up for grabs. Those three. I
think it's mainly the wingers, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for sure, Odegaard and Tell by no means are they out of the running for starting in that game. Considering as well, like yes, that Johnson and Rishi did quite well, but like they didn't do well enough where you can say they're locked in by any stretch. Yeah. And I think if Tell and Odegaard have really strong performances, I think there's a good chance they can make that team for the final.
I do think actually Brennan Johnson is going to be nailed on for the final. Not because of what he... First of all, in a final, to have someone with his positional play and the way he can arrive at the box at a perfect time, that's invaluable. But the two away legs, the defensive performance that he's put in, I don't think Odegaard is capable of that. You know what I mean? And he's not capable of scoring as many goals in the season. It's just not something we've seen of him as of yet. So I do think Brendan Johnson is probably nailed on for the team, to be honest.
Yeah, I think his team his position is pretty strong at the moment. I wouldn't say he's as nailed on as say like a Bentancur or a, Romero, Van de Ven, a Doggy, Porro, these kind of players. But
he's more like, nailed on than Richarlison. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, he's like. Right now, I think Odegaard is going to have like a really strong showing to convince Ange to knock him off. Whereas like someone like Tell, he has to just be good. I don't think he has to absolutely kill it to maybe win that spot. Whereas Odegaard, I think maybe does.
And looking at the Palace team to see like if they do make a lot of changes, their starting 11 is pretty nailed on. Like, you know what I mean? They don't have that much out of their starting 11. The only one who I can see like putting his all into this game is someone like Eddie Nketiah, because there's a good chance that he'll start. Mateta's not really playing that well at this moment in time, so I can see Eddie Nketiah actually having a really good game this weekend.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he's one obviously to watch out for. It's hard to like, we're looking at like the form at the moment. It's hard to like how much that makes a difference, the form table and all that kind of stuff last 5 games. Although in a weird way, Palace actually haven't been in the best form recently.
Well, if you bring up the form table, we've got better form in the last 5 games. Obviously, that takes into account the Europa League and their FA Cup. I mean, that win, was that an FA Cup win? Must have been.
Yeah.
And both our wins are Europa League wins. So league form ain't looking too good. But their away form, 1 win in the last 5 in away. We've won 3 out of our last 5 games at home. If you're going just on the form, then we have got better form going into it, but it's just like I just feel this is going to be a draw. To be honest, I just can't. Like, you predicted a draw, I predicted a Palace win, but I just didn't take into account that this was their last game before the FA Cup final.
Yeah.
And now you take that into account. Just both teams are just going to be like pulling out of everything, and maybe only the players like Eddie Nketiah, Ben Chilwell, people like that, you know, trying to stake a claim. But it's just going to be a poor game of football.
Yeah, that's what I envisage. I don't see it being full-blooded. I don't see either team really going for it. I think it's just going to be a game where both, look, similar to maybe the West Ham Tottenham game, both teams just looking like they're just going through the motions a bit and wanting the game to be over before it's begun, kind of thing. And I think that's how we're probably going to approach it. And I can see them as well, probably even more so. The only fact is, a few of these players who are starting for us are trying to, I guess, win their place in the final for the Europa League. So maybe there'll be some players up for it. But I think by and large, when the whole team isn't there, it's hard for just 1 or 2 players to make that kind of an impact on the whole team.
In terms of the head-to-head, it does look pretty good for Spurs. We've won 4 out of the last 5 games. However, the 1 loss was the last time we played them.
It wasn't a great showing, that one.
No, it wasn't. And I don't expect this to be much better, to be honest, on Sunday. But look, there's just not much you can read into just because of all the different factors.
Yeah, in terms of the head-to-heads, we have a good record against them, but don't think it makes too much of a difference going into Sunday. Obviously, last year we did the double over them, but yeah, we were poor at Selhurst Park early in the season. They really did a good job on us, and obviously that was their first win of the season when they beat us, and they've really gone on strength to strength since then, up until recently in the league anyway. But now they got a really good shot at the winning that FA Cup, so which would be an unbelievable achievement for them, and Glasner as well. What a job he's done there. He's a phenomenal manager, Glasner, and I think if he wins that FA Cup, if there wasn't already, there's going to be even more teams maybe looking at him thinking maybe he can take a next step because he's done such a great job.
Apparently RB Leipzig are sniffing around for him this summer.
But obviously he's managed in Bundesliga before.
Frankfurt
won the Europa League, so the guy's a great manager, and the way as well, like he's just gone through not similar to Ange, but in a different sense. But he's gone through this season a lot of adversity, losing Olise, starting the season in the manner that they did, and turning it around in the way that he has. It's so impressive.
Yeah. Just want to apologise to everyone out there looking for a really insightful match preview. There's just not much. I guess
one thing to chat about is obviously the protests going to be before the game, and there's going to be protests supposedly at half-time as well. I don't know if that's still going ahead or not.
Emily Damari coming home as well.
But she's coming home before the game. She said they're holding an event. But in terms of those protests, off in the week we've made it to a major European final. What do you think of the timing of the protests?
Obviously, I'm a person that massively backs the protests, but I just feel like it's not going to get as much traction this weekend than maybe it would have done if we lost, or it would have done maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Is it right to do it on just a couple days after making a European final?
I mean, yes and no. I think it's right because I think the message is still the same and the message should keep being the same. However, I just feel like fans are just going to want to just be in party mode, really, as opposed to just like protesting down the high road. I do believe like nothing changes for me qualifying for the Europa League final in terms of where we're at with the ownership, but
winning the Europa League final,
I don't think that will change much either, because it's great to win the Europa League final, but I don't think that changes the way that Daniel Levy and Enoch have continued to run the club, in my opinion anyway. But we're saying that we've even got the messages about the summer saying buy to sell, and there's not that much money there and all that kind of stuff, which signals that how can these guys take this club any further forward? Like what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, how can we go to the next level if we can't afford to buy players?
Do you reckon? But is there any chance that's just a message from the club? Maybe just
you'd hope so.
Bargaining chip.
You'd hope so, but we'll have to wait and see until the summer, won't we? We can't tell that now.
Yeah.
But, look, I do think the timing's a little off, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I do think it's a little off, but
because I would say maybe not necessarily before the game, but I think doing a halftime walkout, to the what kind of message I send to players who've just on a high after making that European final, and then they're all of a sudden they come into the stadium and there's a halftime walkout, basically showing your dissatisfaction for them. Essentially, is a message they're getting.
I think you need to make it clear it's to the board and not the players, and I think.
But you can't, in that scenario, when you're doing a halftime walkout, it's hard to separate the two.
I disagree, because I think the players will be fully aware of what it's for and what it's about. The players as well themselves have had their own problems with the board, and a few players have mentioned it in interviews and stuff like that. So I do think there's that element to it. The players are going to get a massive reception, hopefully, anyway. At the beginning of the game, I think they would have. They know that the full club. You saw the atmosphere at Bodo, so I think the players know full well that the fans are 100% behind the team right now. But they also know there's another element to it that fans are not happy with the board. A lot of players are probably not happy with the board as well. So I don't think they'll mind it too much.
I hope not. I just is it?
And I don't think it impacts anything anyway.
Shouldn't do. Look, I just hope not. It's just there's a little element of would some players not be happy with fans kind of doing that just a few days after? Is there a chance that some players could take it the wrong way, in the sense that it's a few days after?
What other way can they take it?
That they're not happy with the players, in a sense. They're not happy with. They're dissatisfied with, obviously, and maybe rightly so, with how the season's gone. But you're basically walking out at half time a few days after we've gotten to a European final, and maybe some players are looking at it and thinking, we've just got to a European final and you're walking out on us at half time, was getting to that European final not enough for you, kind of thing. And maybe some players might take it that way, and I hope they don't, and hopefully they read it in the way that it should be read, which is it's an attack on the board.
I don't really think so. I think the players don't live under a rock. They would have seen stuff on social media. I think they'll be fully aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I hope you're right. You probably are right. You probably are right. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen, and nothing negative.
It'll be extremely strange, for it to be directed at the players after what happened on Thursday night. You know what I mean? It'll be extremely strange, and I don't think the players will think that way. I just can't see it. Can you?
No, I mean, I think the likelihood is they won't. They'll probably be aware of it. I'm just saying, if some are, maybe some aren't, or whatever, maybe there's a chance that some will take it that way.
And I just can't see it, man. I can't see it. And they're professional enough anyway to move past that kind of thing, and they've been dealing with this kind of stuff all season, haven't they? It's not just, this won't be the first time. Maybe it's the first time of a half-time walkout or whatever, but there's been protests, big protests for the last couple of months. And, the Premier League games haven't been good enough, and they've dusted themselves off and performed in the Europa League game. So I fully expect it to be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic having these protests, which, some fans will say, has a bit of, causes a bit of negativity around in terms of the club. You got which I understand. I think I understand I think the protests are right in general. I think that your fans have a right and are right to protest what's going on at the club right now. But I would also say doing it a few days after we've got to European final, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. It's a bit of a weird one. Like, you're basically protesting how the club is run, and you're saying all these how bad everything is. Yeah, we've just gotten to a European final, and this could be the best day. We're basically potentially on the cusp of the best day in our Spurs supporting lives, and we're protesting, saying things aren't good enough and everything's wrong and everyone needs to leave, when we could be on the cusp of our best ever day.
Yeah, but then on the flip side of that, you've just said in the same sentence that you agree with the protests. So.
I understand. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with it. I'm just saying it's just a weird one there in terms of optically.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you to a certain extent. And I was speaking to someone after the Bodo game last night, someone that's always at the protests, and I said to him, "So, protest on Sunday? Are you going?" And he was like, "Nah, I don't think I'll go this time." But then by the end of the sentence, he was like, yeah, I'm going. So I don't know. I just can't see it being as big as maybe previous protests because of what happened last night.
When we got to the Champions League final, if I remember correctly, in Ajax, Daniel Levy came out, didn't he? On the pitch when we were celebrating the players.
Yeah.
What kind of reaction would he get if he did the same in Bilbao, do you think, if we won it?
I don't think people would react negatively, to be honest. I don't think people would take too much notice of it. I think they'll just be celebrating their life away. We've just won a trophy. I don't think anyone's going to take too much notice of Levy coming on the pitch.
Yeah, I just wonder, because if you're saying nothing changes towards the board, you still have that same animosity towards him, regardless of whether we win the trophy or not. I just wonder whether he comes and wants to basically share in the credit and adulation of winning that trophy, whether that would rub some people the wrong way.
In my opinion, as much as I don't back the board and I would like change and all that kind of stuff, on days like cup finals, on days like semi-finals, particularly a second leg, when you get through, like these kind of days, everyone needs to be together. No matter whether you like them, you don't like them. If you're working for Tottenham Hotspur, you're a fan of Tottenham Hotspur, everyone in that moment in time has to be all together. So I don't think that there should be any animosity of a day of a cup final, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
But come first day of the season, we're back, baby.
Yeah, I do. To be honest, I don't think he'd risk it, to be honest, Daniel. But be interesting to see what would happen. I mean, obviously it's a bit of a tangent now, but I do wonder what would happen if he did. Yeah. But I don't think he's going to risk it. I think it was obviously less risky when he did it in the Champions League. There was not much pushback against him, but now it's obviously completely different.
Yeah,
in this day and age, so it's very, very, very different.
I think then there was still like an element of it, but nowhere near as fierce as it is now.
No, I think before it was probably a minority. You would say now it's not a minority.
Would you say it's a majority now that are leaving out?
It's tough to say because social media, warps a lot of perceptions. But I would say like before, it was like who were really leaving out when like back in 2019, it was like 15%, maybe 10-15%, and now it's at least half, you would say.
If you want to judge it on like away ends, right? Because they're, got to say, the most loyal fans that go home and away every week. I think you can gauge it quite well whilst being in an away end in terms of 3,000 fans. Is it a majority of that 3,000 fans or a minority of those 3,000 fans? And I do think from an away end perspective, it is a majority.
Yeah, it's hard to know if away ends are the best way to judge it because they're a very specific kind of demographic of fan a lot of the time. Fans who've been going for a long time. Most will have been going for many, many years. So do they represent the majority of the Spurs fan base? It's hard to say.
They represent the hardcore fan base.
Yeah, that's true. But still, is that a majority of the fan base? Like, yeah, look, I don't know if they do, but I think for sure, like, they represent fans who know the club inside out. I think a lot of the time, for sure, I would agree with that. But not all fans are, as in it as Tottenham fans who go home and away. You know what I mean? You can still like you can watch the game every week and stuff like that, but doesn't mean you're like as like in it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the fans that are not in it as like that are like less inclined to go out and protest and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, but in terms of what's the majority of fans, the majority of fans like the Tottenham away fans, or just fans who kind of watch the game and then get on with their life. You know what I mean? Unlike us who just get consumed by it for like all the time.
But if you're just going to watch the game and get on with your life, then depends what you call a fan, right? I don't know.
I'm not saying they're not a fan. That's my point. They are a fan in my opinion, but I don't know.
It's hard to gauge it, but if you're going to talk about match-going fans, I'm talking about match-going fans, hardcore fans. When you're in an away end, it does feel like from those sets of fans, it is the majority.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Score prediction?
After all that, 1-0. I said 1-0 before. I'm going to stick with it. We'll get a goal, an early goal. Odebear will score after a mistake from their defender. Tell will make a tackle.
Go through
and then
Vicario.
then Eze will nutmeg Vicario, and then it'll end 1-1.
Yeah, I'm going to go 0-0. To be honest, I don't think.
0-0.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nil. Is this like would be our first 0-0 of the season over here? Over here, I had one.
We don't really do 0-0s, do we?
No.
I'm trying to think. Surely we haven't had a 0-0. No way. I don't think we've had a 0-0.
This one's going to be 0-0. And it's going to be a boring game. I'm going to be there to witness it. Very much looking forward to it. So if you're that way inclined and you feel like you want to have your voices heard against the board, the protest, I think, starts at around, midday, I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's midday. What time's kickoff? 2 o'clock?
2, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think the protest is 11 or midday. Check change for Tottenham's Twitter if you do want to head down to there. The meeting place is the crossing of Lordship Lane and the High Road. Emily Damari also
2:15.
2:15 kickoff.
2:15.
Also, Emily Damari is coming back to Tottenham this weekend, so that is going to be a big occasion as well. So big up to her for making her first appearance for a long time. And so I'll be in the ground. Sim will be on the watch along with George, right?
With George, yep.
Yeah.
George on the watch along. Should be a riveting watch.
Riveting. These watch-alongs are so hard to get through now, but look.
Get through is exactly what we've got to do.
All eyes to Bilbao now. All eyes to Bilbao. But that is it from us today. Thank you all for sticking with us. And we'll see you all on Sunday, people. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.